The second part is that there are roles. And these roles have to do with power dynamics, expected behaviors. Sometimes the behaviors are scripted, even rehearsed. But in relationship to the first one, because it is live, those roles are not necessarily concrete, but they're actually shifting in their inaction. Okay, so we have bodies as embodied and live and roles. And then the third thing is that meaning is made in performance. Meaning is made in performance. So I wanted to give you a couple examples. When we think about performance, I think theater often comes to our mind, right? Theater, clearly it's live, embodied, there's roles, and meaning is made. Sometimes it's very obscure, sometimes it's very clear, but there's always some type of meaning being made. Another example, we could think of a music concert as a performance event. Again, applying those three ideas. I think we can also think about teaching in a classroom as a performance event. There's live bodies, enacting, engaging senses. There are roles and power relationships. There are expected behaviors in a classroom. And meaning is being made. We're teaching people things. We're igniting passions. And my last example that I want to talk about is football. Football is absolutely, according to me, a performance event. There are live bodies. All of the senses are engaged: sound, movement, rhythm, taste, sweat, vision. And I think there's also meaning being made. Now, the type of meaning could be very different according to lots of different people. For me, I tend to view football as a performance in which meaning around masculinity is particularly central. Whether or not we, agree with what's going on is another thing. But we'll come back to that after a bottle of wine or something. Anyway, so the next part is, so how do we apply this idea of farming, this idea of performance to farming? And I really do see farming, and I think we could, I'm not a rancher, but could absolutely extend this to ranching, that it is a performance. And so I want to just give you some examples to kind of tease through. So I'm going to go out here on a limb. So in ranching, when you're moving cattle, it's a live embodied event, right? You're using your senses of vision, probably even sound of the rhythm of the hooves, giving you a clue about how fast the animals are moving. You're probably also paying attention to the taste of the air, things like that. There are absolutely roles going on, right? Roles between the ranchers and the cattle as live beings. Also probably roles between the cattle themselves. My mom grew up on a goat dairy, and she was telling me that she had this one goat whose name was Snowball when it was really young, but then when it got bigger, they started calling it the boss, because she would absolutely have her way and push the other goats. So there are roles and expected behaviors being enacted even with animals. An example from what I do, thinking about the question of when to disc an orchard. When to disc an orchard, you have to ask questions about the live embodied nature of the place. So what does the soil feel like? Does it clump up in my hands, or does it fall apart? And that gives you a clue of the moisture level and whether or not the discs are going to do its job, or you're going to get stuck in the mud, or if it's too dry for disking. Right? So this liveness, this embodiedness is absolutely part of my practice of farming. There are also roles that have to do with, in farming, roles between my father and I, roles between myself and the trees, and myself and the farm dogs. All these roles are enacting and unfolding on a daily basis. And in general, I also think that obviously meaning is being made in these enactions. In ranching, in farming, we're making meaning, and that meaning could be for ourselves individually, but it also can be for communities and for the world also. So those are just some examples of how I've been thinking about performance and farming. So what I would like to do next is give you another live example of how questions regarding performance, those ideas of embodiedness, those ideas of roles and the meaning making, what conclusions we come to play on our farm. So what I would love to have are 3 individuals to come up here, down here. So what I'd like each of my volunteers to do is come up and take a handful. So these are Thompson seedless grapes that we've dried just over the past month.
Raisins?
Yes, they're raisins. They're organic too.
Well, that's important.
Yes, it is important. Okay, fantastic. So now, just so we all know, these have not been processed at all, so they're not washed, just so no liability. Anyway, but we are organic, so it's healthier for you anyway. So what I'd like you to do is, with the raisins in your hand, just describe what you feel, what you smell, what you see, what you taste. Just a couple things. So think of what you smell, what you see, what you taste. And we'll just have a couple words of what you're experiencing here.
Fresh and sticky.
Sticky, love it.
I feel stems and sand.
Sand.
We have the whole raisin. It's not just fruit, it's the stem, and they smell really good too.
What does it smell like?
They're earthy and fruity.
Earthy and fruity, fantastic. Okay, so we can see from just a simple handful, we can gather a lot of information, right? Okay, so now the question that my dad and I were asking the past 3 weeks has been, this is the big question. Are these raisins, based on just the test of holding them in your palm, are these raisins good enough to be delivered?
Yeah. You asking me?
Yeah, sure.
I'll eat them.
So we have a...
I'll eat them.
Absolutely not.
I would eat them, but I might not sell them.
Oh, okay. So we have a range of answers. Fantastic. Well, there is no right or wrong answer to the extent that we haven't delivered them yet, so we don't know. But this exercise was just an example of how in our bodies, as farmers, we have to use knowledge derived from the live experience of farming, right? And it's absolutely things that we learn and carry in our bodies. It's not necessarily an equation of how to tell when raisins are ready to be delivered. We have to use our senses in our bodies in order to guess, right? Fantastic. Well, thank you to my 3 brave volunteers. If you want to take them with you, you can. If you want to leave them, that's fine too. So this is a poem called My Field of Dreams. It's not supposed to rain in June, when the pregnant bellies of our peaches hang bare and ripe, a year of labor almost complete, almost delivered, almost enjoyed. It's not supposed to rain in June. Last summer, in June, one night, 1.25 inches fell, a downpour like the sound of falling bullets on the roof, and outside the invisible drops stained the swollen cheeks of our fruit like tears, as if they were lamenting the irreverence of nature's timing. We had been only days away from harvest, and it never rains in June. It can't rain in June. It's not supposed to rain in June. After we surveyed what was left, we came in. My father sat down and looked at his feet, peeled off his boots, his motions heavy and slow, chilled to the core as if he too had been soaked in the rains. We strategized, hoped, and invented what we could do in the orchard's worst hit. Work, 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 sweat, work to salvage our June crops so that we could break even. Now, I don't want to focus my life on money, but break even stung my ears. Something didn't stack up right when we were in front of a struggle to break even growing food, the very fuel and joy that keeps our bodies growing, cultures growing, community growing. I know I can't control the rain, but I also cannot accept a world in which the rich are getting richer while small farmers struggle to break even and farm workers make minimum wage. So I start to dream. I dream of a different world where a losing season wouldn't mean the end of a farm, where there might always be a next year. And then it comes to me, the answer like a gift from the universe. We need the NFL. No, not a career change for me. No, no, no. I mean, a national farming league. And this could also apply to ranchers. Imagine the best and the brightest out of high school and graduates from top-tier universities waiting anxiously in the first-round draft pick for a lifetime of farming. There'd be a whole industry built around recruiting the best people to work and live from the earth based on their love of food and the land, their ability to sweat, and their deep reverence for critical thinking and action. There'd be statistics based on who drove the tractor with the most efficiency and accuracy, studies of who could pick the perfect peach or plant the best cover crop. We would trade in helmets for straw hats, tight spandex pants for a pair of worn-out hand-me-down jeans. I can just see it now. And all of you, the fans. Every summer, there'd be sold-out produce stands, scalpers outside of Whole Foods claiming to have VIP access to the best produce. People would sleep outside their closest farmers markets to get the best position in line. Youth farming programs would pop up everywhere. Farmers and farm workers would make guest appearances to give inspiration to another generation of food lovers and farm allies. People would be clamoring to pledge their allegiance to a new brand of mascots. One of my alma maters, the University of Texas at Austin, the Longhorns would actually represent grass-fed conservationist ranchers raising tasty and ecologically ethical meat in the great state of Texas. And the cheeseheads from the Green Bay Packers in Wisconsin would actually be artisan cheesemakers carrying on secret methods and intricate handmade traditions from generations of cheese lovers. We'd have to build ecologically sound bleachers on the sides of our farm to accommodate the thousands and thousands of people from around the world who want to come to cheer on our farming team. In those bleachers, there'd be people of all types because tickets would be a sliding scale. And we all gotta eat. We all gotta eat. In the crowd, there'd be big city chefs waiting on the sidelines for the handoff as soon as the crops were out of the fields. Home cooks trading NFL cards of secret recipes and kitchen wisdom. Kids fighting over which farm worker was their hero. They'd ask for autographs and swoon for the sweaty bandanas from the farm workers when the day was done. Farm workers would be millionaires. Yeah. And the farmers, we'd be more like Zen Buddhist coaches giving wisdom from the sidelines. And the NFL Hall of Fame would be overwhelmingly composed of immigrant names. Pictures of good-hearted working white folk and rooted people of color and native communities who have fed us for generations. Whole histories of marginalized people working the land would no longer be silent. They would be revered, especially back in the stands, in the front row, where there would be a mixed-race group of beautiful, chubby guys with their shirts off, their chests painted in bright colors, and watermelons on their head because they actually loved watermelon! But wait a second, where does this put me? Where would I fit in? I'd be the 2011 first-round women's draft pick because there'd be no gender disparity in my NFL. The strongest and smartest women would be counted amongst the elite, and there would be plenty of room for my transgender brothers and sisters out on the land, too. And the only cheerleaders allowed would be fans in genderqueer produce costumes. It would be a revolution in popular culture, gender, food, race, immigration policy, and even though this is just a dream, and even though I still don't like football, and even though I don't really want money and fame, because if I did, I would not have chosen this life, I want the people who work the land, the people who feed us, to be valued. Thank you. Thank you so much.